Hello everybody, I'm here with Alicia and we're going to speak about Jinky 30. And this is the archetype of the fire starter. And you, Alicia, you have it in your activation sequence. I believe it's either your radiance or your purpose, right?
Yes, my purpose.
So welcome, and it's going to be, I think it was a tough week for many of us. It's the last day today. I think we're actually going into the 55. So maybe tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit of how this transit was for you, given that you have it also in your chart.
Sure. Yeah. Well, for this week, I would say with it being in transit, it was interesting. I love to take it a step further and really contemplate the codon rings. And so I was contemplating the 13 and the 30 together and just looking at the power of clearing our past and removing all old history. And as I looked up, I live in Costa Rica, I'm in the jungle and I'm sitting outside and I hear something rustling in the jungle, and I look up and there's this huge zopalote or zopalote or a buzzard, right? Which is totally about cleansing and purification. And so I thought that was interesting as we were going through this transit that I've received many visits from the buzzard this week. And so I've been contemplating how that works into the ring of the whirlwind, looking at the codon rings kind of weaving together and playing together, in the order of the 49 and then the 13 and now the 30 leading into the 55. And really what I've felt like is happening is through this celestial fire and through this purification, if we're allowing it to burn up through us and allow us to shift out of these shadow frequencies, it really starts to really truly ignite this mutation and these DNA activations. And so that's what I feel like we're going into right now, is the full on preview 7-year cycle of 2027 is starting to happen right now, especially in the individuals. And I've seen that really kick off from the 41st codon, or start codon, a few weeks ago. And so it's just been interesting to play with it in that way. But I know I can take it a step further and kind of share how it's drastically changed my life in the past year.
Right. I'm just going to show the people that are watching that we were speaking about, I was saying, we were in the 30 going into the 55 was how I started. And you were weaving in, where we kind of came from. So this is the rave mandala, and the rave new year starts on the 41. And then every 6th day, you could say that we change transit, we change gates. So now we're like, week by week, we're going into all the gates that are here. So that's what you're talking about. And I would love to hear, like you say, what's happening for you in your life, where you're at, and how you see this, like, kind of, what can you say, like anticipation of 2027, but also the acceleration of what's coming for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if I can take you back to when the gene keys came in for me, it was a little over a year ago. I had just moved to Costa Rica with my family. I was happily married, husband, 3 children. And shortly after I moved here, there'd been a lot of awakening happening in my life, including a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I didn't even know what Kundalini was. I just know that I had my body filled with light and I felt orgasmic energy for 2 weeks. So I was like Googling, what is this? And so that's what had happened. And really what also had happened, I believe, looking back now, is it had activated my awareness with who I really am through the gene keys and human design. They came in at the same time for me. Well, they happened to come in at a time where a new man also came into my life. Okay. And so it was a little bit of an interesting situation because I'm happily married and this new man comes in. This isn't exactly like normal life for me, right? I'm very happily married, all of it. When I met this individual, something did happen. I would say looking back, it was maybe already like a magnetic aura lock-in or connection that I couldn't understand or describe at the time. Mm-hmm. And so eventually when the gene keys popped in about 3 to 4 weeks later, I saw I had the 29 and the 30. And it's funny, knowing it now is different than when I first read it then, but I'm already feeling like, what the hell's happening to me? I just moved to this new country. This isn't what I expected. Wow, what's happening? And then I read the 29 and the 30. So they work very deeply together within my experience. But ultimately, it led me to this deep discovery of myself. The shadow of the desire really led me into, who am I, and what do I want here, and why do I want this? Why am I feeling this? And I've always been pretty good at figuring things out on my own, with my own mental capabilities of, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I responding this way? What's inside me that needs to be looked at to understand I don't need to experience something outside of me? I'm kind of responsible with working with myself in that way. So when this desire came, and it didn't seem like it was something I could fix or change.
Right.
And I would say that was about so you read about gate of the fates and gate of feeling. And so here I am, I'm feeling this deep desire, and it's something I want so bad. I don't know how to say no to this. And the 29 is about saying yes. So here I am though, saying, is this desire in the shadow, or is this desire in the light? Am I missing something that I need to have fulfilled in my life? And so eventually, I mean, this led to a very open discussion with my husband to kind of allow him to understand what was happening with me. And he just really gave me the space. We've been in a beautiful, conscious relationship. He just gave me the time to, it scared him, of course. It shocked him. None of us ever thought anything like this would happen, but it gave me the time to just reflect on myself. He gave me as much time as I needed. And really in that process, gosh, I learned so much. It was my dark night of the soul, which I didn't know that something like that existed either. But it was this point where, looking back and being able to match some of the Jinky stuff, in my vocation, I have the 44.4. And so understanding that the 4 is about rejection. And so in these times of understanding what was going on, I couldn't make the decision that felt right in my body, because I was in my head. Right. And so my head was talking about morals and duality and good and bad and right and wrong. And so I knew for sure that if I went in my head, I would never be able to make the decision my body was telling me. And this, to me, is what I really see as my shift or my mutation into my solar plexus. Right. For any and all feeling and knowing and making decisions. And so in the end, it's so crazy to think it's almost been a year now. I am with the person that sparked my interest, and there's some interesting synchronicities there. He's also a Cross of Contagion like me, but he's flipped, so his unconscious design matches my design, which also means that his birthday is August 21st, which is my 88 days before my birthday, November 18th. So there was some interesting synchronicities that were happening there. And so that even made me question it more. Oh, well, maybe this is some kind of mechanical magnetic thing, and it's just going to be something very temporary. But ultimately what it's led to is me understanding that I believe we're one of the sacred relationships that the Gene Keys talks about. And it's blowing my mind, but I'm living this dream. I am in these higher dimensional frequencies, and I'm feeling this, I'm living it. And the reason I've been able to understand the Gene Keys in what I would say a pretty quick amount of time for being self-taught is because the Gene Keys taught me. They've been there all along with me to really help me understand what was really happening. And it's the reason that I've been able, so getting back to the 30, it's about surrender. I mean, this whole thing is just about surrender. We've got to learn how to get rid of fear, and we've got to learn how to surrender. We've got to learn how to let go of control of everything we think it was supposed to be like. We've got to let it go. And so this type of information and using the Gene Keys helped me be able to surrender. And it was hard. I mean, there were so many emotions to go along with that. It would have been a lot easier if my husband was a terrible person, but no, he's a dream. He's beautiful. And so to kind of go along and just show you what's evolved since then. So So to go to there, it's like I was raptured.
Right.
For sure. I mean, I was put under the fire in so many ways. There were so many other synchronicities I could tell you too. I mean, like one time, Eduardo is his name, invited me to a Tao meeting. He's practiced Tao, and so he invites me to this meeting. I'd never heard of the Gene Keys or human design, or the I Ching or anything like this. Well, I'd started studying it as it came into my field, and so immediately I was consumed. I'm sure many of us are like this, where like I would wake up and study for 3 to 4 hours a night like a quantum computer, just receiving information, understanding this stuff, putting it all together, right? And so what was the point of me telling you that?
The synchronicities.
The synchronicities, but I might jump back to exactly what that was, but I'm going to jump to something else just in case anyways, okay? Because here's what happened. You know, my husband and I eventually agreed to separate. We still very much deeply co-parent and are around each other. I called in his partner from another country. She's from England. I didn't know her. She has the 28.3 in her culture sphere, just like I do. Like I pulled in an ally. Like I'm seeing these gene keys come to life for real. And so, and then my ex-husband has the 29.3. So I'm starting to see how that clicks into the three. Really, we're here to teach the new unit of family and relationship. And that's what's evolving in our reality right now. Is even my ex-husband and I are doing a podcast together now. Like we went through the whole divorce process and the unconditional love and the acceptance of it all. And we're seeing how it's unfolding in the gene keys and really being supported. And it's like when you get to that place where you really do surrender to the fates here, you don't really have to think anymore. You don't really have to plan anymore. I don't even know if it's strategy and authority anymore. You're just straight up like pulled. You are in the passenger seat, and it can't even unfold any more beautifully than you could have imagined or tried to plan it for yourself. So the 30 for me has been about letting go of control, letting go of planning, letting go of thinking I know how to do it, shifting from my head to my heart. I really had to shift out of morals and ethics and what's right and what's, you know, my husband and I were together for 14 years. So when I read in the 29th gene key and it said, if you find yourself attracted to someone else at the end of a 7-year cycle, it's either time for you to step it up in this relationship or it's going to be a start of something new. And so that's the 29 and the 30. And then I could go on with all the synchronicities, but I guess that's probably a lot, right, Bella?
No, I love it. I want to share because I also look at your, like you were mentioning a little bit about your star pearl, and I have the 28-3. It's actually I'm also born in 82, so I have it as my pearl. And in human design it says unfounded risk taking, is that Scorpio energy that kind of just jumps down into the water, and it's actually really, it's really dangerous somehow, but it just knows that the totality of life is more important than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you are kind of here to do that on a daily basis, and that goes together with the 29 and the 30, that is to live life fully as well and devote yourself to whatever is in front of you, to that person. It doesn't matter if they have been in front of you for 15 years or for like 15 minutes. There is something in that. And then the same thing with the vocation. The 44-4 is the magical number of the soul fractal. So I guess that, looking at the big picture, your ex-husband and the new man are both part of that fractal in different ways. So you are here, but that could also be, the curse in your life. If you would think somehow how a divorce can it's like fracturing a family, it's leaving wounds, it's making the core wound become more tight. So because you were speaking about the dark night of the soul, so I'm interested in knowing, what it was, because you also have the 38, the struggle, like what was the hardest thing and what made it shift to something that felt suddenly more, that went to higher frequency?
Yeah, it was definitely for me about being able to love and accept myself. Like I had really judged this about myself. I couldn't understand how I'd allowed something like that to happen, really, to allow myself to have an attraction or a feeling to someone else. And so there was this interesting judgment of it, and then also a massive fear of what other people were going to think, because in my mind, in my ego, I had done a really good job of building a really beautiful American Dream program. You know, I had like aced the American Dream program. I've always said I wanted to write a book called The American Dream Program. And it's like, I did that and I did it really well. And so I had this reputation of a beautiful family, a beautiful reputation and all of it. And I was going to need to throw any of that perfection away. And it's so funny because until this happened, I really thought I was really good at not giving a shit what anybody thought of me. But clearly that wasn't the case, because I couldn't make the decision that almost felt like life and death for me. I mean, this was over the course of 9 months, and I did start to receive physical symptoms. My heart area completely swelled up. I would have heart pains or chest pains, like I thought I was maybe having heart attacks. I mean, I was having interesting changes within my stomach as well. Like there were mutations, what I believe were mutations happening at the time that all of this was happening. And also the not honoring myself was leading me to this physical body discomfort, which I know better. I teach this all the time, not suppressing and releasing and expressing. But, you know, I put myself to a feeling sick and a not trusting what my desire was telling me out of morals, you know, and out of acceptance of others. And really it goes back to the rejection wound. And so it's a wound I didn't know I had, because I thought I'd always been really good at clearing my own stuff very well. And so this was the perfect thing for me to see, wow, you think you don't care, but you care. You have an image there and it's pretty important to you. And so, and then also to really understand that whatever I thought and feared that everybody else was going to be thinking about me was really just the last of my own judgments about my own self. It really wasn't about the crowd. It really isn't about anyone outside of you. It really is about, like, can you love you? Can you accept you? Can you rapture into yourself? You know, and as an individual, that's really what I've learned, you know, with human design. As soon as I understood that, it gave me the permission to really be what some might consider selfish. You know, it's my job to be my individual self. It's more than anything else. I'm here to live my life through these experiences and to break through some old ways of how we used to think and look at things, including marriage and relationship and family. And now I'm starting, you know, I'm being blessed in these frequencies of seeing like the 37 and the family alchemy and how that's coming together. And I'm in this conscious community. I still don't even know how I got here half the time, you know, and I'm seeing how the 50, like how we have this melting pot of, you know, 40 different countries and so many different languages and kids from different cultures, and my kids, the Americans, coming in and disrupting the family cultures of the more chill, you know, Latin culture. It's very beautiful to see it. And it's all in the gene keys, you know. It's like that little experience, that big experience led me into this, what I see as sacred divine information that often brings me to tears. I feel like we're honored to work with such sacred text. This is the sacred text broken down in simplicity for us to really start to understand it and to play with our frequencies and recreate our realities and embody these higher frequencies. You know, when I came in a year ago, kind of looking at this, it seemed as though people talked about the cities as if they were far off and not really attainable. And from the minute I read that, I was like, no, this is now. This can be now. We can embody these types of frequencies now. You have to be willing to die, though. You have to really be willing to let go of it. And some people are a little too scared of that. But when you're willing to let go of the fear and the dying and the reputation and the, you know, that's what can really jump you into the higher frequencies.
Yeah, I want to share your human design now. Or first of all, when you were saying the thing about your heart, you know, as a 2-4, you are rooted in your breath and in your, you know, that is the fourth chakra. So for you, when your core stability during those months where you didn't know, where you weren't sure, when as a 2-4 that happens, that is the area, you know, the breath or that's the way that you often it happens, where you see that, okay, I'm not completing my radiance. I'm the fourth line that doesn't, it's not ready to get to jump, because it's still like the fourth line is all about opportunity. So it sees the beauty in what it has, and it doesn't want to jump to the new. And then the heart and the breath is like, it's so often there that we feel it.
Yes. Oh, exactly. It's a beautiful design. It's like looking at it and seeing, like, I plugged it in and I chose all these little codes and numbers before I came here. And here I am, like, watching them unfold. It's crazy. It's exactly what you're saying. It's beautiful that you could even look at it and interpret that. And it's exactly that.
And then I feel it's also because we have very similar open centers. So like you were saying, the ego, we think sometimes, especially when it's completely open, we think, okay, I don't really care what other people think. Or we have open head and Ajna, like, okay, no, I'm open, I'm liberal. But then there is this thing that kind of, when it's like really facing us, and then we kind of have to, like you say, kind of dying to it. And also the thing about how are other people going to react? How can I actually, how to deal with other people's emotions or other people's reactions. So you have all these open centers kind of firing together, and sometimes wanting to say the right thing, wanting to say what people want to hear. So I can see how all of these centers could have worked against you, to have you, locked into the pressure from the outside, the conditioning, and all these things that we are, stuck in, so many of us, before we have the courage to jump.
You nailed it. It's and my ex-husband was is emotional centered. And so, oh my gosh. And I came into this info as we were going through this, and he and I had mastered our relationship. We were so conscious together. So there weren't a lot of problems. But when I started to come into the knowing that I was feeling everybody else's stuff all the time, number one, that was like a whoa. And then when I learned that he has an emotional wave, I was like, whoa. And then as we were going through the discomfort of this, I mean, I would walk in and I would just feel, and that was hard. And yet, even going through that and being able to support him. And you know what I see now in the beauty of this, when we're really able to choose and honor the self and really look at what's really coming and be able to surrender to it. It's like, I see the rise of the feminine coming in the masculine through him. And I needed to step out for that to happen. That's a part of the design. Like, he and I both had to understand and agree that, like, we had some sacred contracts. We had some karmic relationships here, clearly. And then to be able to all be mutual friends, like, in a couple of days, we're going to this huge music festival in Costa Rica. We're all staying in the same house. We're all friends. Like, we're all just a part of the same family now. And honestly, I feel like we've done 7 years of integration in 1 year, because I think for the average couple to, like, be able to go through that, leave a marriage and leave it honestly, in a way that you could still preserve it.
Right.
And because the shadow side of desire would be to play around a little bit without anybody knowing. Right. And I immediately decided, I've got to let him know. I don't know what this is going on. And I've got to speak about this. I can't keep this to myself. And so, yeah, I mean, so many experiences there, and in human design and the gene keys kept me sane and healthy and alive. It's totally my guidebook for sure.
And I feel it's also can be important to say, because people can feel like, oh, it felt kind of natural for you, you're detached. But we also want to say that you are a right angle cross. So you're a 2-4, and everything that starts with like a 1, 2, 3, you're basically here to discover for yourself, or to flow for yourself, to find your own flow. So that is the second line. And you are here to be in and out of relationship, and that is where you can become disappointed and where you can find fulfillment. So that is the second line. It's here to be in relationship, to mirror in relationship. And you have the 8 in your, so this is your evolution. So it's like, can you find your own unique style in relationship, or are you going to be what is expected from you? And when you are what is expected from you, then you are going into mediocrity, or you're losing your flow. So that is a beautiful reminder, that 8 too. Actually, it's better if you look at it here. The mediocrity of like, not following your voice. The 8, when we look at it in the body graph, it's in an open throat. So for you, you have a lot of pressure to say what other people think, to have the style that they're expecting you to have, but you were courageous enough to, there is a detriment there. So you could have fallen into that. So I feel that is beautiful for that personal journey. And then the integration circuitry, your strong intuition, your life force, like you're saying, you have this Kundalini awakening, and also the love of the self. These 3 gates are integration circuitry. So you go about things your way, and that's what leads to evolution. So that's also what you're saying. There are mutation. The human being, we are coming together in a new way. The family unit, the way we do it, the way we find our soul fractals is changing. And also, you don't actually have a lot of circuitry that has to do with the tribal, how it used to be. We're together because we need to be together because of the resources, because of fear. No, you're actually together out of intuition, out of mutation, out of evolution. That's how I, hear you speak when you speak about the mutations and the reorganization of your family units.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's just been a fun, evolution to watch. Like, I can't say these changes aren't hard for the kids, but even just understanding their gene keys and and seeing it all woven together, there's such a deep trust in all of this process. And honestly, this type of pattern that I'm experiencing I'm not the only one that's experiencing this type of thing where I'm located. And so now I'm so deep into the deeper understandings of watching the fractals coming together, seeing the energetic lines of connection that are happening with attraction fields and programming partners. And I've started just doing some very casual in my community get-togethers where we just talk and look at our numbers and go over a gene key every week. And it's really starting to model and show it all. It's like, whoa, the next thing we'll have a projector and a line 654321 in every sphere or something, like who knows what's about to happen. But I feel like these communities and the ways that they talk about in the gene keys, I keep going back to the 50, but that's another part of this. And I see how, wow, after me going through the shames of this whole process, right? Because all of my neighbors knew me as one person, and then I went through all of that, and then somehow I'm through that fire now, and I'm even able to now teach the content that helped me get through it, and it's actually pretty relatable information to the people around me. And whereas a fear of mine before would be, oh my gosh, like nobody's ever going to want to hang out with me again. Everybody's going to think I'm the one that tells all the ladies to leave their husbands, like whatever, all the stuff, right? All the fear-based thinking that comes and that keeps you from choosing, all the fear talk, that sometimes takes over and controls us and keeps us from listening to the self and listening to the heart and the body.
And I'm thinking again for the listeners, because I'm wondering, was it a gradual thing that it got better? Like from this kind of everything can kind of burn up or fall apart. Like you said, it was the dark night of the soul. Can you discern or tell us about some the shift when it started to get better? When did you start to see the light in the tunnel and to see how it was going to actually fall out? What was that?
Yeah. Number one, I took a month off from the family. And so I left and I got out of everybody's field. Mm-hmm. And and that's even rare, right? For a mother to leave her children for a month. But I had a partner that totally supported that and understood we both needed that. And so I flew back to the US. He stayed here with the kids and talk about synchronicities. I met Joe Dispenza in an airport. I met Matt Kahn. I was meeting all of these activators. I was like, wow, I'm exchanging codes with all my fractals right now, basically. Mm-hmm. But I allowed that clear space to make decisions. And then when I got back, it happened to be, we have a famous astrologer in my neighborhood, Kaipacha, mm-hmm. and he was doing the day I got back, he was doing just a general, state of what's going on. And this was about a year ago. This was March, April last year. And one of the things he was talking about was the falling of the structures and, the breaking down of the old structures and commitments and contracts and all of that. And of course, my astrology stuff all lines up with this whole story, you
Mhm.
know. Of course it does. It's all connected. But anyways, at that moment, my when he said that, I kind of almost fell out of my chair. It was quite an interesting thing, and my wedding ring flew off my finger across the room. My husband's sitting next to me, and we just looked at each other like, "Oh my gosh, we're supposed to do this." Like, things just kept getting way too synchronistic.
Right.
And at that point, um, he was starting to have an interest in this other woman that I introduced him to, who ends up, we have the same culture sphere together. And so it just started unfolding. I
Mhm.
just had to really sit with it. And I knew the way that I knew how to really make the decision, which was just telling David, like, I have to do this. I did tell him, I was like, I have to do this. I
Right.
don't know how to not do this. I can't say that it means that we might be together again or not, but I also don't want to put you in that. But there's something here I have to experience, and I don't know how to not do it. I've already tried to handle this on my own. It's been 8 months or 9 months, but I know I'm supposed to pursue this. And so, um, I probably waited well longer than I needed to. But I also was doing that, I think, out of respect for him. And there was a little bit of the empathic process there, because I probably knew for sure almost at the beginning. That's
Right.
how powerful and strong the energy was. And so, and I'll be honest, when I read about couples like this and these ideas, some of them seemed rather dramatic, and that's not very enticing for me, because I already had mastered relationships, really. Like, I didn't really have dramatic relationships. I wasn't looking to try another relationship that would then bring me those things. I'd rather just fix my stuff on my own instead of, in my relationships. So that kind of kept me from making the decision too, because I was like, is this some false idea of fantasy here that I'm playing with? So these were the struggles,
Yeah.
that came with the feels when I would get into that mental state of just and making sure I made the right decision, and the opportunist of, like, if I do this, I lose this beautiful man that I'm with. I don't know what's here for me in the next decision. And so to have it fully supported by him, and to allow it to just unfold like it has been beautiful. And I mean, and that doesn't even go into what the 2946 channel is for me and him. It's like, that's a whole new world. I didn't know what Tantra was. And really what he and I have decided to do is that we don't take really any influence from anyone, and we don't seek out any resources. We totally connect intuitively. And for now, that's been very beautiful. And we just see where that goes. And it's a whole new world, and I couldn't have known about that world in my other life. And I meant to know about that world, because it's generated this creation power in me. It's fully activated all my chakras, for sure. If I had a block, it was here, and it's not there anymore. And so that energy is just flowing through me all day, every day. I mean, I am full of energy all day, every day, because I feel so aligned with myself. And so generally guided and supported. So
I want to show people. So what we're talking about, we're speaking about the 29 and the 46. So we see it's your radiance and is your moon. So we see like it's your sun and your moon basically on your soul side. So these are activations of your soul, and they make up this tantric channel that takes life force, like that raw power of Kundalini, and it actually sublimates, or it not sublimates, it's only like it circulated up and back up to the heart. And the G center, it has to do with knowing who we are, knowing what love is, and knowing, where we're going. So that is that activation that you have between the marriage between your sun and your earth, basically on your soul side is doing that. So that's also why, probably you had a Kundalini awakening in yourself. Like that is your moon and your sun. It's kind of your feminine or masculine that are already in you. And that's when we speak about the sacred couples and like the new world and all that. It's like we have a woman who is holding herself, and she meets a man who is holding himself. And then that kind of alchemy that can be created between two beings that are already in their true essence of feminine and masculine. That's when we speak about tantra, and that's where we speak about even like that merkaba being created, that we can go to multidimensionality in each other's energy. So that's, and we can see it here, and it took you knew it right away too, because you are open emotional, so you don't have that wave like your splenic intuition told you when your sacral energy was flowing towards that. And then out of respect and out of, these other open things, you kind of had to check in. So that also shows us that we don't have to jump with a 30. That rapture, that desire, we don't have to, it's not said that we have to be foolish. It can actually, both can be true. We do follow when fire comes and tells us this is the way to go, but we don't have to hurt everybody and burn everybody on the way there. And I think, your example, it's a beautiful example of how that can happen, and also quite, in a way, dramatic example, because we actually have 3 kids that are in this, a marriage. It's not only like this, it's not something that's just that you do like this, you don't think more about.
Yeah, no, it was an important decision to make. So I sat with it for a really long time. And yeah, it's the knowing when to follow the desire. That's what you're working through from the shadow to the gift frequency. But eventually, when you shine a light on that awareness, then every desire is exactly what you need. You don't even question that anymore. You get to a point where it's like, there's nothing here to trick you anymore. You don't have any more lessons you need to learn or any more ahas outside of you because you haven't figured something out yet, and so, yeah, I love how you said that about the Kundalini inside. That's exactly what was happening. And it's just powerful how all of this is, how it all works. It still blows my mind every day, and I can't stop talking about it. It's a little bit obsessive. I would say, like, I am raptured in love for my beloved. Like, I love him so much. He's so beautiful. And I love this information. I love seeing the patterns. I'm a little bit obsessed with code on rings and patterns and codes and figuring it all out. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? But it's I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. And if you would say any last words to people that have the 30 and the 29, maybe in their activation sequence or their vocation, and are still kind of struggling, and is there anything that that any advice or anything that you could share in order to make it a little bit less, burning and a little bit easier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that's so important is really becoming very aware of the things in your life that are keeping you from feeling in your body. Any of the mental distractions and external distractions. It's so important that we really are allowing ourselves to feel and connecting with the feels and trusting the feels. And so sometimes we're just so distracted that we can't feel or trust or know. And I know this may be different depending on your type and design, because this may be a little more specific to me, but I wonder how many people, the 29 and 30, have similar structures too. And so the other thing was, well, it was surrendering. It was letting go of anything the way that I thought it was supposed to be. It's just a must. It's only like at some point in some of these experiences, like point A to point B is determined, and it's your willingness to surrender that determines how easy or hard it goes, how painful it is on the journey. And so learning to surrender, love and acceptance for yourself, and shifting from the mind to the heart. So when I say the thing that really kept getting me back to what I knew I needed to do in this particular situation was, if it's not good or bad or right or wrong, then what do I do?
Right.
And that's when I sat in myself, and I felt and I knew. And so shifting into the trusting of that, shifting out of this and into all of that.
And I'm just curious, did you feel a purpose, or didn't you know yet what the purpose was? Or could you already feel that there was a purpose, or name that purpose?
I started to imagine that, that it was really turning into us being a sacred couple and really raising the frequency on the planet. Like, that's what I started to see. And then I was like, well, is that a little crazy? Because that sounds really exciting and really fun. Like, is this what I signed up for? Because let's go, let's do this. But then there's this questioning of, well, that sounds a little bit, like a fantasy or a dream. But that's where we're at now. And that's what the fifth dimension's about. And that's what these higher dimensional frequencies are. They're your real dreams, the ones you picked before you came. You know, they're beautiful. And so I love how, I feel like Jinky takes the cap off of human design. You know, I love that I learned them both at the same time, so I don't have a detachment. I use them both in so many different ways, but there's no limit when you start to dance with frequency. And so it's really about, and this I would just suggest with all of the Gene Keys, it's really about living in that quantum reality now. We're stepping out of time, we're stepping out of space, we're stepping out of gravity. I mean, even where I live in Costa Rica, when I think about my environment, I feel like when you fly into Costa Rica, we don't even do time changes here. That says something, but you know, you step out of the dimension of time here. It's never about looking at the time. Yeah. And so, you know, some of my reality had kind of shored itself up before leading me to this info. So it allowed me, I was doing a lot of surrendering before, I think, that allowed me to come in and really be able to jump into some of the higher frequencies and play with them, because I'd already let go of so much of the old programming. And, before I ever got here. And then that was kind of like my final one. I'm not saying we don't ever stop learning stuff. We do, but that was like the final fire for me, where at this point I just trust and accept everything that happens. And I generally am in a state of peace and bliss and ecstasy on all given days, with a very a high emotional intelligence that knows how to be in control of my emotions and my reactional states, and really stay in the higher frequencies. And I'm sure studying the information frequently helps with that, and maybe my design also, but it's really the surrender process. You know, what are you willing to let go of to really dance in these beautiful visions, this beautiful heaven on earth, really, that we're here to start to embody. It's here now. And I'm excited for other people to kind of come into this. I feel like, you know, when I think back a year ago when I was looking up this info, I was trying to find anything that I could. I was trying to find stories on the 29 and the 30. And here they are now. They're coming, right? But there weren't so many of them a year ago still. Right. Like, it feels like it all just started busting up right at that time. And I believe that there was a wave of energetic activation that happened on the solar eclipse in August 2017. And so for me, that was a major activation for me. And something so interesting, you know, I have the calendar that you've posted about also, that Daniel made. And, you know, it just dawned on me at one point, because I had a pretty interesting experience on the solar eclipse of August 21st, 2017. And I believe that's when a lot of us got activated in many ways. And what I mean by that, I guess, is I see that there are waves of people that are coming into an awakening and ascending into higher frequencies in more of a quantum-like way, without some of the limitations of time, and without a 7-year deprogramming of the not self. Like, I don't think that's necessary. I'm living proof of it, actually, you know, and I'm sure that there's some things of me that might still be not self, but I had a hard time when I heard that. I was like, it takes 7 years. I don't know if I agree with that, right? We're in no time, no space now. We're in the quantum. But okay, what was the point? Sorry, I get a little lost. I wanted to tell you something about that. If it comes, it comes. It wasn't important, but anyways.
I mean, usually when we publish a conversation with somebody, we say, you know, watch this if you have this cross, and if you have maybe, you know, this gene key. But today I'm thinking about what I'm going to write, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like we went into so many things. Like, we were looking at the open centers. We were looking at, you know, there's so much, like, there is so much value in actually just start with our own themes. Like, I feel like we can all relate to what we speak about today. This is so valuable for any of us who come into this and who actually, you know, look at the numbers, and we start seeing synchronicities, but we don't know whether to trust them or not. And a conversation like this can help you to start, like you say, trusting, surrendering, letting go, like kind of not only like doing it with the mind, but actually doing it through experience, through the body. And I just feel like you're a beautiful example of like, the courage. And that's a lot what I see with the 30 and the 29 is that devotion and the Scorpio energy of like, okay, the water is deep, it is risky, but I trust that there is a purpose. The 38 and the 28 with that, which I see a lot of people born, 82, that we have it. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be provoking for some people, but if there's a purpose, I'll take the struggle, I'll go for it. And there is something beautiful that's going to come out on the other side.
Exactly. It really is just the surrender thing. And the 28, 38 gates definitely do keep. We're looking back at the amount of time that all of this took. But you know what the other alternative was, is not making a decision at all, right? And it wouldn't have been the right one, even though it was a picture perfect one. And it makes you think, like, what I've seen in the impact of when we choose ourselves and when we surrender to our design, it's a ripple effect in the time space, right? It's a ripple effect in the quantum. You have created a new template. Any one of us that dares to really align with the template of ourselves that we chose before we came, it's like when we do it, when we bust into that, it automatically allows other people to step right into that without less struggle. And so the more that we all continuously do that within our own self, that's how we make these massive leaps in awareness across the collective. And, you can't help but eventually, when you come into this info, I don't look at anything individual anymore. I lost myself a long time ago. Everything's collective. Everything I feel in my body, everything that I think, it's all collective. Like, there is no denying that anymore. It's this information and these experiences has deeply solidified that to me on a level where there is no duality and polarity anymore. We are all the one, but we also we can be ascended masters living. We don't have to die anymore. And so here we are as multidimensional beings. And it doesn't mean we shift down in the third dimensional or the shadow frequencies every once in a while to play. There's no judgment. There's nothing wrong with that. But eventually you start to really create some new habits or become more in tune with these pathways of these higher energetic fields. And your life is about just holding those fields more than anything else. Not even about getting caught up in what's my job title and what am I going to call myself and what am I going to do and how am I going to make money. Like, there's even a trust. We could bring my 14 into this with the radiating prosperity. There's such a deep trust and understanding that abundance will always come to me, no matter, especially if I'm living my design. And I don't even have to think of it. I am sitting here like this, and I'm like watching my fractals come in, and I'm watching my allies come in, and I'm watching my attractor field pull in, and I'm watching these connections being made. And so we don't have to be so much in the masculine control of the architecture of our life anymore. And this is really about the feminine, right? Surrendering to the flow. And that's what we're all working on. And so these tools help us do it.
Well, thank you so much. I know we could continue forever. I think I'll take the occasion to end this conversation here. And thank you for everything you shared. And you are going to be a contributor also in the group. I feel like, some of the things been speaking about are a bit intangible. So also when we can help each other to make it a little bit more tangible and a little bit more also step by step, like how we can work with the Jinky sometimes to like go out of the comfort zone, and then the bigger steps are easier. So I'm also really happy to have you help us with some of the challenges maybe, and things to help people have the same, not the same courage, but to have them see the same patterns in their own life, and where it's possible to go out of the comfort zone.
Yes. And, I did type up a little challenge for Ashley to post out there with just about a 12-minute, like listening to a mantra and really allowing these fires to kind of burn through. And so there's a little guided deal that's somewhere on the site that people can find. And I think that might help just go through a little bit of an exercise to really allow these activations and allow these fires to really purify us and burn through whatever it is that we don't need, and I wrote in there a little bit about the 49 too, because we're putting the whirlwind and the ring of whirlwind and the purification together.
Yeah.
And the 49 was talking about, well, it's the rebirth and the revolution, but it was also just talking about complete restarts of the DNA, the complete restarts of the DNA back to before birth, back to clean reset. And so I think the 49's been setting us up for that. And that's more on the collective, and the 55's the individual. And so then I see the purification and, you know, the 30 and the 13 kind of going in, and the power of that codon ring and really allowing us to magically erase our past. We don't have to go through these very long processes of healing anymore. I want to honor whatever it takes for anyone, but we're moving so fast now. We're out of linear time now. We're just jumping timelines. You know, the minute we see something or we believe something else to be true that's a higher frequency or more true, we jump into a whole nother world. And so we use these keys to kind of play in that frequency reality too. So it's been great talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk again on another occasion. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.